Hello, thanks for joining this impromptu live event. I say impromptu because I didn't tell anyone I was going to do it, so if marketing have managed to get a post out about this, I'll be very impressed. As the title suggests, I'm going to do an end-to-end demo of Robopack's three main features. That's instant apps, custom apps, and radar. Now, as you probably know, live demos are doomed to fail, so I'm looking forward to seeing how I mess this one up. Keep watching, it's bound to happen. I've done quite a few videos so far of Robopack over the months. Somehow I've not managed to get an end-to-end demo recorded, showing the features that I like the most. So if you're watching this over on my YouTube channel, thank you for tuning in. Just be aware that future live streams will be posted only on the Robopack channel, I think. So head over to there and subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one. If you have any questions, please ask them in chat wherever you're watching. I think LinkedIn is currently working, although I can't check because I don't want to go and mess around with LinkedIn while I'm talking to you. I'll try to keep up. If there's anyone else out there who knows Robopack and knows how this all works, please feel free to jump in and answer anything that I miss. Thanks for the support, Patrick, on YouTube. Let's share my screen, I think. Although there's a nice QR code on the screen, I'm sure you can get it in a second. So, someone scanned the QR code, that's good. Thank you for that. By the way, I'm using Restream for this, and Restream is so much better than what I previously used. And I don't mind shouting out the fact that Riverside is utterly awful for live streams. It is utterly awful for live streams. Restream is fantastic. So thank you to Restream for making a product that just works. I mean, I say it just works. I assume people can actually see me and hear me. So thank you, Timmy, for mentioning that it's working. Okay, so with Robopack, we start on this main screen. I always start here because it's where you go when you get to app.robopack.com. Now, I'm going to go through these three main features, which are actually now on the homepage, which is Convert Package, which is really custom apps, instant apps, and radar. So let's start with instant apps because that's a nice, easy one to ease myself in gently, really. Let's search. Now, when you click the search box, it doesn't show you anything. I guess you could click on instant apps, and it will show you the common apps that we see Robopack really being used for, but let's just search tree size free. I was going to go for, but if anyone has any suggestions in chat, please shout them out. Don't shout at your screen, just type them into chat, and I'm happy to type that instead. But for now, I'm going to go with tree size free, and maybe because it's quick enough, I can come back and do another one later on. So tree size free, I'll click on that. Now with this, we have two options. We actually have Winget and the store, but you'll notice that normally, at least in my experience, Winget has more up-to-date versions. Excuse me. More up-to-date versions of applications than the store. I don't know why. Maybe it's easier for vendors to put apps into the Winget. Anyway, we have an option of analyze and build, and we have import from the Microsoft Store. Or Flow. Now, really, Flow might be what you use moving forward. It might be the way you go, but I want to show you the end-to-end. So let me just show you what happens when I choose analyze and build. So we get the name, the publisher, and the version, and we're also going to wrap this in PSADT. So presumably we know how to install it, but if we click on advanced options, then we can change the description and the developer name if you want, but we'll go to information, go to continue. Now, because this is in Winget, it will be able to install and uninstall, so we don't need to worry about the silent install command or the uninstall command, and we can just choose import app. And when we import the app, we have it already tested because this has been done before. Within Robopack, someone has packaged up this version of tree size free from Winget. And so what we can do is take a look at all this information. So we know it's made by the installer platform. We know how big it is. We know how big it is when it's installed. And really at this stage, we could just import it to Intune because that's something you might want to do. Excuse me. So when we import it into Intune, we have that version, so version 4.7.3 of tree size free in Intune, which is great news, right? We have we have an application ready to put into Intune. It's great. But it doesn't really solve the problem of when 4.7.4 comes out. So that's what a flow is for. And if I was to choose import to Intune, we could just connect it to our tenant and choose some information about it. There it is. That's how it's going to install it. And then we could choose continue and do that. But again, that's solving a problem just once, and we want to solve it many times. So I'm going to look at the other options. So we've got source files download. We can get those files if you like, and the Intune win that we've just created, and the PSADT script. Now, I'll go into what PSADT is later on. If you aren't familiar with it, I'll go into it in a bit more detail, but it is PS App Deploy Toolkit, and we'll talk about why we use it later on. So I'm going to choose Setup Flow, because with the flow, we get to do some clever automation. So firstly, we're going to automatically upload and start new deployments, which some people I speak to say that's great. We're going to automatically upload and start deploying it to my organization. Good. Although some people I speak to say that's utterly terrifying, that we're going to automatically upload it to Intune and start deploying it to my organization. Because, well, if we start deploying the app, well, that's going to mean it goes out to my organization pretty quickly, which is great. But what if there's a problem with that app? I have not tested it. So we need some way to mitigate the huge risk of just automating everything. And so what we have is some more control with Robopack compared to what you normally get with Winget, which is just that it goes everywhere all at the same time. So we're going to automatically upload and start new deployments. Now the rest of these I might go into later on, but for now I'm going to choose Create Flow. And with the flow, we have this wave approach. And if you're familiar with Robopack, this will not be a surprise to you. This is exactly how it's meant to work. So we can add that first deployment wave, which you might have as your IT pilot. Pilot is spelled with an I typically. So we'll choose OK, and we've got this IT pilot. Now, we can either choose a new group, or I can find one from my existing Entra environment. So I might go for my IT pilot computers. Now, in the, I think it was in the previous live stream, we talked about the fact that we aren't doing a huge amount of testing of the application in your environment for you. So what this wave could be, it could be your test computers, it could be your virtual machines, not real people's computers. There's no reason it has to be an actual set of devices that are switched on with a human in front of it. It could just be VMs. And one of the ways you could use that is, do some intensive antivirus scanning and security scanning and WDAC and AppLocker stuff on that set of computers that you deploy it to before it even goes to the first set of people, right? It would be very easy to do that. If I scroll down and show you the other options we have, this is quite interesting at the bottom here. So we have a delay after completion. So once this has finished installing on the computers that I've just targeted it at, how long do we wait before we move to the next wave? Now, you might say instantly, let's move to the next wave instantly. Fine. Or you might say, look, not many people actually use Size Free every day. It might take a couple of days for someone to actually get around to opening it and see if it works. So let's give this a couple of days. Now we've got to temper this to make sure we don't make it too long an end-to-end process, because certainly with Cyber Essentials Plus, we need to patch applications within 14 days of them being updated. So making it too long, remember we've got other waves to go after this. We don't want to have too many days after the completion. Anyway, so minimum response rate, this is how many computers receive this application before we're happy that it's been received in the organization, in the group. So I'm going to, not 100, I'm going to go with 60. And then the success rate, for this one, I really want 100% of the computers in that group who have received it to install it successfully without errors before I move to the next wave. That's my opinion. Your opinion might be completely different. You might have a different response rate that you prefer as well. So let's go to the next wave. So once we finish that, we can go to the next wave. And in the second wave, it might be my app pilot users and existing group. And so I'll go for the app test pilot computers. Nope, app pilot users. There we go. I'll choose add existing. So I realize no one's actually put a question in the chat recently. So if you are still there, please let me know that you're still there, because I'm not actually monitoring the stream elsewhere other than chat. Again, same criteria, but I'm going to put another delay on this because I can't expect my users to actually have a chance to open up this app instantly as soon as it's installed. So again, I'm going to go with a couple of days. And then the third wave might be all users, all devices, maybe. That could be how you do it. But again, there's no limit. Robopack aren't telling you how to use this. They aren't telling you the best way to do application deployment in your environment. They're just making it possible. And what you saw there was a really responsive, reactive user interface that I was able to add waves and delete waves as I need to. There's no limit to the number of waves that you can have in your environment. There's no limit to the number of groups you can have in your waves. So really, you can use it however you need to. And it's meant to match or have the capability to match your workflow. Whatever you've designed in your environment works for your teams and your users. Anyway, so now I can simply choose save and start deployment. Thank you for saying you're here. Great. So I can choose save and start deployment, and it will then, well, it'll go to my Intune environment. So it's currently being uploaded to Intune and creating the assignments. Now, I chose tree size free because someone suggested it a few days ago, actually, when I was doing a demo. So there will already be a tree size free version in Intune, but now it is active. I'm just going to go into Intune and choose apps and then Windows. And if I choose tree size free, there's a version there. Maybe I didn't choose save and start deployment. Oh. Going quiet because that didn't seem to do the thing I expected it to do. Okay, that's interesting. Yesterday's is there, today's isn't there. Moving on very swiftly. I haven't got time to troubleshoot that live. So it goes into Intune and we can theoretically deploy it to our organization. So at this stage, though, we do have some options of what we can do next. So once it has been tested, once it has gone to your IT test computers, we can either wait for it to be successful, and that success criteria we saw was listed here. We can either wait for it to be successful, or if it's a really urgent thing you need to get out to your organization, we can choose skip to the next wave, and it will very quickly skip to that next wave in our wave, which will be the app pilot users in this case. And so the idea here is that we can quickly move between waves if we need to, and if you need to stop, then you can choose pause deployment because you found an issue and you need to make sure it doesn't go to any more devices. We can pause that deployment there. The point is that we can control it all through Robopack. So that's how we manage a library app. Now, I went to the library and I chose tree size free just because it was easy to choose a random application like that. There are lots and lots and lots of applications in the library. We use Winget as one of our sources, as I shared earlier on. Now, not all applications can be in the library. It's impossible for us to get access to some applications. You know, they're paywalled or they're behind a login screen, and so we need to have a solution to solve that. And the way we do that is to allow you to actually just convert your own packages completely from executable or MSI or script, if you like, to an Intune Win using the Win32 platform. What is it called? Intune Win, so that you can use all of the clever stuff that Intune does for Win32 apps. So we will be able to do supersedence, for example, like we do for library apps. Now, I mentioned that we're using Winget. We're actually converting all of those into an Intune Win file so that they act as a Win32 app, which is the most important bit, because Win32 apps are much better at, they're the best app type you can have in Intune. They're supported for all the different things we need, especially autopilot, for example. So we're going to do that with our next app that I'm going to create. So I'm going to choose Convert Package. And with Convert Package, I'm going to have a look at this one here. It's a little bit shrunk, but you can see, hopefully, the Global Secure Access Client. Now, the Global Secure Access Client I was trying to package for a customer of mine a few weeks ago and found that I couldn't because I was using a Mac and I didn't want to have to spin up a virtual machine in order to package up the global secure access client.exe that Microsoft provided. But I downloaded it from Entra, and it's essentially a VPN replacement from Microsoft, kind of an alternative to a VPN, which allows you to tunnel in to networks, either specifically for a particular app or anyway, it's a pretty useful solution, and I wanted to install it, but you need a client for it, so this was it. Now, I do happen to know how you install it silently, but I'm going to see if Robopack can. I'm going to show you that Robopack can do that for me as well. So it's actually figured out that it's Wixburn, that the platform that has built this set of files in an executable is Wixburn, which is made by Microsoft for packaging of applications, but it's fairly common. I'm going to make an Intune Win file, and I'm also, just continue, I'm going to use this name, this publisher, this version. They're all detected from the executable, and the install command it has detected for me because it understands how to interact with Wixburn based applications. It has figured out this install command, which I don't know, might work. We'll see. We're going to test it and see if it works. Now, it doesn't know the uninstall command because that would be magic at this stage, but I could type an uninstall command here if I happen to know what it was. And if I knew the install command here was wrong, I could also fix that and type that. It also doesn't know the detection method, but I could indeed type my own detection method if I wanted to. So at this stage, we are going to analyze and test this package, and that means that we're going to install it and see if it works. We're also going to wrap this in the installation script. Now, the installation script I mentioned before is the PowerShell App Deployment Toolkit, which is a fantastic toolkit, free to use and actually powered by one of our competitors. They are custodians of the PSADT, and it is fantastic as a tool and allows you to do many different things when packaging applications. And we love it, so we're using it. It allows us to do things, for example, like allowing deferral, which in Intune is actually it's not a thing that works in Intune. There isn't something that you can just click on to get deferral to work. And actually, when you think about it, running applications as system to do a silent install and allowing the user to defer it, that's actually pretty tricky because you've got to show them a user interface. So we have to work around that. And PSADT allows us to work around that, and it's fantastic at what it does. And I'll show you, for example, I've got a template here called Allow Deferral. I'm going to scroll down and choose Continue, and we can move on. So at this stage, I can choose Create Package, and it's going to, hopefully, because this is live, and I mentioned that they're doomed to fail, it's going to upload this content to Robopack storage for me. And there it's going to run a quick virus scan to make sure I haven't just uploaded a virus. It is also going to start a virtual machine for me. So it's going to allocate and start a virtual machine that it's going to copy the files to, which is what it's doing right now. Now at this stage, it has an idea of how to install it because either I have told it or it has figured it out how to install it. And now it's testing it because we want to see that that actually works, because I could have typed anything in that and it might have simply not worked. So we're testing that. Quick question in the chat while that's happening. Can you demo a PS script as a Win32 app? I have not prepared anything for that, but I am very happy to give that a go. Yes. Hopefully I'll do that before we finish. The other thing it's doing, actually I've missed it now, it's uninstalling it now. It's figured out how to uninstall it. It would have taken a look in the registry and figured out how to uninstall this application. But it also will have done some other things that I'm going to share with you in a few moments. In fact, one of them's right on the screen. So we have the size that of the file that I uploaded, which was 119 meg. And now we have the size when it's installed, which is useful to know. It's not impossible for anyone else to work out, but it's useful to have it there on the screen right when you need it. Now, if I scroll down a little bit more, you can see that we've got how it installed it and the detection method that it figured out, which is great. Now, it's completed, which it has a green tick, which means theoretically we're ready to go. We can start doing that work, but I'm going to dwell on this a little bit more and start going through some of the detail here before we move on. Crucially, if that wasn't a green tick, there would be some work for someone to do. And we need to have a way to figure out what happened. And we can do that. I'll show you. So we have this app documentation. And with the app documentation, you can see I've got the install command, the uninstall command, and the detection method all written down for me there, which is useful. The installed size, including the size in bytes, the number of files, and the number of files left after the uninstall completes, which is interesting in itself. There are 98 files left after this application is done installed, which is a bit messy from my perspective, potentially. We have 1,900 registry files created on the computer. I'm not an app developer, that might be reasonable. I have no idea. I'm going to scroll down, and we can see there was an install log created, which is great. I've got all the install log there, and I've got the uninstall log as well to see what happened during that process. Now, the app files, okay, we have .NET that gets installed. We have .NET, lots of .NET. There's 1,500 rows. I'm not going to go into it. But if I choose this button here, we can see how many files are left afterwards. And in this case, it's mostly .NET. And we have the size, when it was created, the version number, information that might be relevant to you. But really, .NET was left over at the end of an uninstall. It's not unusual for that to happen, I think. Okay, so we've now got the documentation. Now, great, we created some documentation. Maybe you don't care about documentation at all. Maybe you have no interest in it, but someone might in your team. And certainly I've worked in many MSPs in the past as a service provider, and people pay a lot of money for documentation to be created per app. There's a lot of time that needs to be taken to gather this kind of information about your application at this kind of detail with this kind of level of precision. And it's created for you already. It's right there. We can choose download PDF report. You don't even need to scrape it from the website. You can download it all as a PDF. I think that's a huge time saver. Anyway, I said I was dwelling on it. I'll move on. So we can import it to Intune. Now I mentioned that this is a one-time thing that you could do. Just get it into Intune. Let's do that. But we can leverage the power of our automation again and set up a flow, even for this manually uploaded application that I've got. There's a question in the chat, again on YouTube, not sure which channel, but thank you for the question. If the analyze fail, how do I know why? So really that will tell you there that there's been a failure, and then in the app documentation you can find through the uninstall log what the actual errors are. Now if there's a failure, a fundamental failure of the back-end technology of Robopack, then it goes to our team. Every failure will notify the Robopack team for some investigation to make sure it wasn't an actual failure at the Robopack level, but it could be simply that the application didn't install or uninstall. Now, because it's a free text field that I was able to type in for install and uninstall, there's going to be a lot of those. If you just type in something wrong, then it's going to fail to install. So we have to be quite careful about making sure you have access to the install log and the uninstall log so you can see exactly why it failed and what happened when it failed. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me see how I move. Okay, so I'm not going to import it to Intune, but like I mentioned, I could at this stage. But if I choose Setup Flow, now the point of a flow was so that we would automatically upload and start new deployments. Now, I'm not going to do that, really, because it's never going to get this application automatically from Winget. But it still might be useful to be able to do that, and I'll show you why. We're going to leave this as the allow deferral template, and if I scroll down a little bit, I'll choose Create Flow. Now, with this flow, again, yes, I've just uploaded this application, so it's not automatically appeared into the flow, but at this stage, I want it to go to my IT test computers. I want it to go to my app test people later, and then I want it to go to the entire estate after that. And as an MSP, you might have many different customers that you want it to go to after that. So the fact that you can get this into the flow, even though it's a custom application, yes, we haven't been able to automate the start of it because that would be impossible, but we've fully automated the rest of it. So really the only thing I've done so far is told it which file I wanted to upload, and it has automatically got everywhere, apart from this bit here where I need to specify the waves. But if I was to choose copy waves, I could grab some waves from a different application that I'm happy with. Just choose copy waves. But even so, before I do that, let me try and get back, because I need to just go back and cancel that. If I choose setup flow, we could add a patch group. Now, patch groups I will talk about because they were really built as a feature for Radar, and a problem that Radar created for organizations by trying to solve the problem of allowing organizations to upload many applications at once and patch many applications at once. We had to have a more streamlined way of templating how you create waves, which the team decided was patch groups. And if you have a look at the previous live stream we did with the wider team, then there's some great insight into why that happened. I wasn't part of the decision-making process. I'm just a great advocate of the fact that it works really well. So we could use a patch group. So by a patch group, I mean I could choose standard app deployment here, and you can see that it knows which applications are in that patch group, and it knows which waves it's going to be deployed to, and I could choose create flow at this stage. So there it is. Now, that application that I've just uploaded to Robopack, it figured out how to install it silently, it figured out how to detect it and uninstall it, and now it's in the right place for my IT pilot computers to be the first ones to receive this application. And when I choose save and start deployment, that will upload that content to Intune. So hopefully we have an application going to Intune. I'm not going to tempt fate and check. I'll be honest, I don't want to tempt fate and check that. I will move to the next step, because once we have an application in Intune, it's not always as simple as that, right? So let's say this global secure access client, I've paid money for it, perhaps. I need a license key for it. And there's no solution in Intune to customize applications after they've been installed. There's no way to do custom settings, really, apart from running a script. Now, of course, someone mentioned, I could easily create a script and push that as a Win32. That's certainly a feature of Robopack. But maybe there's a better way. And in fact, if I go back to the package here, you can see I've got this button here called Add Custom Setting. And I've also got custom app settings here. But if I just choose Add Custom Settings on the Global Secure Access client, now most applications will just work and install, and when users log in, however they log in, they will receive the settings they need. But some applications, probably quite a lot actually thinking about it, need like a license key or a registry key adding, or a file adding like an XML document somewhere to do something to customize the application. And as a person who records YouTube videos pretty much as a job, I don't have many of those examples for you, but I know many of you will have examples of that. So I'm going to guess that maybe this application might need a license key. Now, what I could do, for example, in this case, the actual process for installing the application isn't that complicated. It's going to run the installer, but I could add a parameter, for example, which might be key-this. That's unlikely to be a license key, but that could be what it needs to be. I could also fully change this command to be whatever I wanted it to be, and that will then transform this application to install exactly the way I've told it to. And this can be a way for you to override however Robopack has decided for you to deploy applications. So we can also do the same for the uninstall command. I'll just move that back to the original command, and I'll show you that we can do registry keys. Now I could add a registry key by choosing add registry value and put in the right place, and choose whether it's a string, a dword, a binary, or a string, or a expandable string, and put that in the right place. Or I could import a .reg file if that was what was needed in this particular case for this application. And I think I didn't mention it, you can remove it on uninstall, so it will remove that registry key to clean up after itself, which is nice. Scrolling down, and this is the bit I like the most, I think, and I can see is most useful, because copying files to a computer is a bit of a pain. You have to use a script normally, and here we have the ability to just pop something on the common desktop. I can just have this how to use the Global Secure Access Client PDF that I've created, and I can put this on the common desktop for everyone to see, and I can remove it when I don't have the application installed anymore. I can just choose save, and now that file is going to be copied to the desktop of people who have this application installed. Incredibly useful. Scrolling down, I can show that I can actually have PowerShell commands that I can just type in free text. It doesn't need to be a script. I can just put the PowerShell command in here during the pre-install, the install, and the post-install phase. Same with pre-uninstall, uninstall, and post-uninstall phase. That was quite hard to say. And it's free text. You can type whatever you want. Obviously, it will be tested, because if I was to save this, it will then have to package all this up as PSADT. That's exactly how it's working, and it will put it in an Intune Win file and deploy it with this application. That's the key thing. It's not deploying this completely separately. It will be linked in the same package as the application that you're deploying every time a new version of that application gets uploaded into Robopack. Okay. The other thing, actually, if you have multiple tenants, and a lot of our customers do have multiple tenants, I've just applied this for all tenants, but I could very simply add a second tenant here and have specific customizations for each tenant. And again, I don't have many tenants in my life. Well, I do, but I don't manage them. They're all labs. But as a MSP or someone who manages multiple customers, this customization is such a simple thing. It's hugely powerful. Okay, that was instant apps and custom apps, which I said were two of the main things we can do with Robopack. I'll look at Radar in a moment, but could I... Now, I don't know if I have VS Code installed on this computer, because I've just... I don't have it ready. But I did want to show you possibly packaging a PS1. So let me quickly do that. Trying to think of what you could possibly have in a PS1 that you might want to script, but I can't even think of any PowerShell off the top of my head. I appreciate you can't see the screen either. Because I don't want you to see me failing at PowerShell. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what it says, I guess. I'm going to save it as PowerShell script. If you have any suggestions of what you could put in a PowerShell script that would make any sense, you've got the chat feature there. Please let me know. I'll put PS1 so it actually knows it's a PS1 file. Great. We have a PowerShell script. And at this stage, I can go back to Robopack and choose Convert Package. I'm going to take this PS1 and choose Open, and I think it'll work. Okay, it's a 1 kilobyte PS1, and it is going to be wrapped as PSADT, and that is what it's going to do. So the install command that it has decided it wants to use, thank you, Robopack, for figuring that out for me, because I hadn't thought of that. It will run PowerShell with the execution policy unrestricted and run this PS1 for me. And obviously it's not going to know how to detect it, because it... I have no idea how to detect it right now. So I would need to add some rules. And whatever happens during that script, which obviously maybe you're making changes or you're putting a file down or you're doing something, you would need to put that information in the detection method so that it can be actually found. And then same with the uninstall. Let's get an uninstaller in there. I mean, you don't need an uninstaller, I guess, but it'll fail to test the uninstaller. So if I analyze and test the package, we can do that. Now, I mentioned that we will analyze and test the package, but you don't have to. That's a slider. You could not analyze and test it if you wanted to. And we're also going to wrap it in PSADT. I mean, I haven't done this before. I've just written a script that says write host, so I doubt it's going to do much, but I'm happy to try it. In fact, it's not letting me do it without a detection method. let me do a separate video once I've figured out how to demonstrate this quickly. But hopefully, whoever asked, Brez, can you demo a PS script as a Win32 app? The capability's there. I'm just not set up right now to demonstrate how it works. It does work, I'm sure it does, but I haven't got a script that I know how to detect, so I can't show you it. But hopefully that's useful for you to see that it just takes that script for you and you can run it. Okay. Question: does it apply changes in registry even after installing the app already? No, it does it during the installation time. If anyone from the Robopack team is on any of the chat, you're welcome to let me know if I'm wrong there, but I believe it will modify the installer and change the settings when the application gets deployed. Hopefully that answers the question from Joe. And if I'm wrong, I will follow up and let you know, but that's my understanding. Okay, radar then. I mean, we did... I cannot do as good a demo of radar compared to Magnus. So I'm going to try, but that was a stellar demo last week, so forgive me if it's awful. I'll choose radar. And with radar, we can scan a tenant. And the idea here is that you can see it's empty. I have scanned this tenant with radar before, but we don't persist the data. We just it's in memory for this, and then it's gotten rid of. So you need to scan radar every time, and it's not a big deal because scanning Intune with radar just takes a few seconds to do normally. As you can see here, it just pops up straight away with all of the applications that are detected. There's two different types that we have here. We have an app that is created in Intune, but not being patched by Robopack. That's useful for you to know and see. And then we have another one called Discovered App, which is an app that was discovered by Intune scanning the enrolled devices. I'll take your point. If you have that question in your mind, yes, that takes a little while to actually happen over time. The Discovered Apps feature isn't instant, fine, and Magnus gives a good explanation of why that isn't such a problem in his mind. And I think it boils down to the fact that most organizations have already done all of that discovery by the time you come to scan Intune with radar. But yes, there is a small delay with Discovered Apps. It also shows you the number of devices. Now, again, lab tenants, this number would be higher than one typically, but we have one in this case. At this stage, you can choose add patch flow for any of these, but that is, even this small lab tenant with only 25 applications, it's going to take a little while to go through and choose all of these, and that's where patch groups came from. That's, I think, why the team developed that and released it at exactly the same time as Radar version 1, because you can choose the applications that you want to add to two patch groups from Radar, and you can choose. In this case, I've got two patch groups. I've got the standard app deployment, and I've got the all devices with deferral app deployment. I can choose that and choose add to patch group. Now, I've just picked 5 at random. They might already be in patch groups, and they might already be being deployed. Yes, they're only in a separate patch group. So, not a great example, but you can see the point is that you can add them to that patch group, and in this case, I've obviously done a demo and not started the patch group at all, so that's why they're still there. But the idea is that you can select many and add them to a group and start deploying them over to your devices. So a question from Joe, just as a follow-up. So always apply it beforehand, and it applies to the next update of the app. And an answer, thank you from Timu. The custom app settings apply when the next version of the app is deployed. So I think, yes, you're right, Joe. That's how it's meant to work. And I think that's how it works. But again, if I'm wrong, I'm very happy to accept that I'm wrong. Failing fast is something I do regularly. And update you on that. So that was Radar and patch groups. Really, I guess there's more to show you on Radar, but I don't want to take up too much more of everyone's time by talking at you if you're watching. But thank you for sticking around if you have. Finally, there's a couple of things I wanted to show you before we move on. In settings, actually. And in settings, we have a couple of... I'll show you the templates first. We have the script templates. Now, I've been dealing with a couple of templates here. I've got this allow deferral one that I mentioned. And this is how you create it. And it's a fantastic way to use the PowerShell app deployment toolkit with user interface. And if I choose edit, you can see all of these tick boxes and stuff are... they're features of PSADT that are just being toggled on or off and customized using this UI. So I can allow a welcome dialog, and if I allow the welcome dialog, then I'm able to allow deferral for a number of times. Now with deferral, it says a number of times because with Intune, there isn't such a thing as a delay in where you can run a timer for a certain amount of time. For example, the way deferral works is that you allow the user to fail the deployment by choosing not now or defer, and it will simply tell Intune that it failed and give a specific return code for that failure, which will essentially ask Intune to retry next time. Now, Intune retries approximately every 8 hours, so it's going to retry later. And then you can, that's why you have a number of times. So you can specify it could be 5 times that they're allowed to defer it. But if you want to actually get it installed, obviously don't make that number too high. You could also only show this and only allow them to defer if there are apps actually to close. So if we want them to close a particular application, then we can specify that. Now, the other thing here is I've added in a banner image, because I wanted to show that this is from a trusted... the person interacting with the user in this case is trusted. In this case, I've put the Robopack logo. You would put your own either MSP or IT team logo or something that makes users feel like they're familiar with the people who are interacting with them. And you can have a template per tenant. So you could have a particular template that you use for one customer versus a template that you use for a different customer. Again, a huge amount of flexibility that as an MSP or as someone who manages multiple tenants or multiple teams, in fact, you could be very customized for each of those customers, which I think is really powerful. So assignment templates. Now, I didn't really go into the assignment templates because I skipped over importing it to Intune at every point. But if I was to have imported it to Intune at some point, I could have had it deploy to, if I used the default, it would have deployed to all users available, default available. No, it would have done required. It would have done this. So it would have created these groups for me. Let me show you what let me quickly show you what I mean. If I was to import this to Intune now, I could go down and choose create deployment, and this is the template that I'm referring to. So that would create those groups for me. So app-name-available or required. I've chosen the next coffee template here, and if I go back and show you that next coffee template in settings and assignment templates, it's just this one here, and that's why there were only 2 there, available and required. So again, you can customize them. There's no limit to the number of templates you can have and use it as you see fit. Okay, finally, not finally, one more thing after this one. Notifications, very, very useful. So we can have a notification for everything that happened, or at least these things that happen. So if there's a package created or one is ready or there's an error, then we can have an email sent, or we can have a post to a Teams channel. So for example, this one here at 2:20, was it that long ago? Wow. We had the Global Secure Access Client deployed to via Robopack. The package was ready to deploy. So that notification came through to Teams as an adaptive card. Just useful, right? If you've got many people in the organization doing different things, having that notification come centrally to a Teams channel is really, really useful. And, you know, that email address could be a team inbox, if you like. Now, I said finally a couple of times, but really, I'm using Enter ID for this particular demo environment. And when I choose Ada organization settings, you can see that I'm using Enter ID only as the way users can log in to Robopack. That is the preferred approach from a security perspective, and it's just better that if you force people to use a single identity platform to log in. And with Entra ID, then it's using the enterprise app, so you can use conditional access to enforce strong multi-factor authentication to get into this application in the first place. Very, very useful. And then if you want to go a little bit further, you can also use roles synchronized from Entra ID's enterprise application. So we could take the roles from there, and then you can assign roles within an Entra ID. And that would mean that your security team who want to give permissions and control that access to Robopack can do that from their native platform that they use, Entra ID. We also have the ability to look at the permissions. Here you can see the permissions we have available, the roles within Robopack that are default, and these are copied over to Entra when you choose Entra ID so that you can use that instead. Wow, I've been talking for 46 minutes. That was fun. Let me see if I can do that. No more questions in chat, so thank you if you have been watching. Quite a few people watching, actually, according to the figure I've got on my screen, which is quite nice. Well, hopefully that's given you a taste of what Robopack can do. Maybe you already knew about it. Maybe you wanted to see if I was going to talk about something new. Apologies if I've not wowed you with anything new right now. But if you have any questions that I didn't get around to answering, or if you like a more in-depth demo, please just drop me an email. And yeah, I'm more than happy to help. So for now, I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.